back with another episode of New England Beer Buddies, continuing with Mark and Garrett, of course, in our Porter Pour-Off. Got a couple of vanilla-influenced porters up today. And the first one we're going to be doing is the Great North Robust Vanilla Porter, which I'll hand it over to Mark to talk about a little bit.
So this is from Great North Brewing or Great North Aleworks in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's a sort of vanilla-infused porter, about 6.5% ABV, which is pretty typical for a porter. It's kind of dissolved at this point, but it had a kind of a small sort of brownish head when we first poured it. Great North's a pretty good brewery. I think I've had mostly IPAs from them before, but I do also I really like this vanilla porter by them.
All right, well, let's give it a whirl.
So the vanilla feel it's more mild in the smell, but it's definitely it's much stronger in the flavor. It's pretty upfront. It's not something that you just get on the aftertaste. It's something that you get pretty early on in the tasting, and I'd say it's pretty strong. But I just feel like vanilla is a flavor that works pretty well with a porter. So it ends up being overall like just pretty well balanced. Definitely more on the sweet side. So that's something which I don't mind in this case, but if you're someone that really, doesn't like things, sweet at all, might not be the beer for you.
Agreed. I would say a selling point for me on this particular porter is that vanilla that comes up front. A lot of times you either have vanilla in the aftertaste, or you have it up front, and these things kind of fade with the aftertaste. I would say with this particular porter, it's fairly strong throughout, which I really like, that it's hanging on there, and the overall impression at the end, even right now, a handful of seconds later, it's still there, which I like a lot. It doesn't just kind of fade off. So however they did that, they definitely did it well, and I would agree that it's a pretty well balanced porter. And in terms of the mouthfeel, actually, I think for a lot of these that we've done, we did a couple others earlier today. This is again a fairly neutral, not overly sticky mouth coating thing, which some people love, but I'm not a huge fan of. So I think they did a great job. I think it's very drinkable, and I think it's a pretty well balanced beer. So I think they did a good job with this one. I guess we'll go to our note sheets unless there's something you want to add. We'll kind of make our notes and
let's score it.
All right, let's do it. So we're back with our second beer of this matchup, which I'll talk a little bit about. So what we're doing next is the RiverWalk Brewing Company, which is out of Newburyport, Massachusetts. Their Storm Door Porter. This is actually a seasonal ale with vanilla and spices. So per their own description, it's a kind of winter, harsh weather porter with vanilla bean and cinnamon sticks. And a rich dark malt, so we'll kind of see how that all stacks up. One cool thing I saw about this particular porter is they actually tell you the hops and the malt composition, not percentage wise, but they do kind of list out, okay, it's these 3 kinds of hops and these 5 types of malt, basically. So I thought that was actually pretty neat for any of you homebrewer type people. I don't know if they do that on all of their cans, but I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for that, because I think that's pretty neat that you taste a certain beer and they're kind of telling you a little bit of what went into it. Obviously there's not giving away their secret sauce here, but seasonal, so hopefully it's still around if you want it, but we'll take a taste and see what we think. Cheers.
Right. Cheers. The vanilla is not as strong as I feel in the other one we just did.
Right.
the robust vanilla porter.
Yeah, the vanilla is definitely a little less. Um, there is when we poured it, I know this one did have a, not that, again, we've said this a couple times before, but not that porters have a head, but so to speak, but it did stick around for a little while. I feel this one's has a little more stickiness to it in the mouth feel for sure. Aroma wise, there's nothing too overpowering to it. There's almost a hint of carameliness to it. Again, nothing too strong. And overall, the vanilla is a little less, but there are some other sorts of spice notes in there that I can't quite put my finger on. I'd say the cinnamon doesn't really come through too much for me, but again, keep in mind that that's their description on the can. It's not a vanilla cinnamon porter. It's that's just kind of one of the things they've noted that there's.
Yeah, there is. You definitely get it, but it's only in the aftertaste. It's not up forward. It's kind of like you get a little bit, maybe some of the spices in the vanilla, but not super strong. In sort of up front, and then as it finishes, that's when I was sort of getting the cinnamon flavor.
Yeah, I'd have to agree that does come on a little later. It has a hint versus some other porters, not as strong of the fizziness we kind of noted in a prior episode on the Oxbow.
Yeah.
Not as strong as that, but there is a little bit of a not fizzy, but I guess a bright-ish, semi-fizzy feel on your tongue that I didn't see with the last one we had with the Great North Aleworks. Is what it is. Not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And overall, I'd say it is pretty well balanced. The vanilla, to me anyways, in this one does fade off a little bit more than in the Great North Aleworks. It kind of held a bit more throughout. But those are my initial observations anyways. I don't know if you what you may have to add there. It is a little more sticky. We talked about that. But overall, I mean, another great beer. I mean, we're doing all good stuff, so it's tough to tough to say too many bad things here. But.
Yeah, exactly. These are all really great breweries, and beers they put a lot of time into making. So there's, none of the things that we've tasted so far have been mediocre. They've all been very good, and the differences between them have been very subtle and incremental.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But this one, I do feel there's a very quick sweetness at the beginning that dies off rather quickly. There's still some sweetness from the vanilla left after, but it's almost an initial spike almost. I don't know how else to describe it, that there is really some very sweet notes right in the beginning that disappear almost immediately to give way to the vanilla and the other stuff. So I think that's where we're getting some of the spice is kind of in that initial burst, if you will. So, I think unless you have further comments on it, I think we'll go to our scoring sheets and tally up these two and see who won on these last on this pairing.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good.
All right, so we're back to announce the winner of this pairing. So again, that was between the Great North Aleworks Robust Vanilla Porter and the RiverWalk Brewing Company Storm Door Porter, which was a seasonal release. So both in the vanilla line of things. And our winner between those two was the Great North Aleworks Robust Vanilla Porter. I don't know if you want to share your pluses and minuses or what really sold you on that one.
Yeah, well, I just felt that was something where it was, obviously a flavored porter, but the flavor was just so well integrated with the style. It didn't seem at all like an afterthought. We talked about how it wasn't something where you only tasted the vanilla, kind of on the finish. It was up front and kind of lasted throughout sort of the whole tasting process. And just kind of about how that was, it just really did it. It made it a really great beer. it had kind of all the classic marks of a porter, but it also had this really nice, added bonus to it with the vanilla flavor, and just a really, really well done beer. I know, in my opinion, I think it was. I don't know. I think it might not overtake the the Draken Porter by Kelson,
Right.
but it's definitely
It's a
good
contender.
challenger.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a contender for sure.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd really have to add there, and hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but a couple of my selling points for it. Initially, it was a bit carbonated, but there wasn't that fizzy aftertaste. I think we already talked about that. And in addition to vanilla, there was like this little fruity hint in the background. I couldn't even put a finger on what fruit, but there was just something else there, and I enjoyed it greatly. But I think its biggest selling point, its strongest attribute for me, which exists in other porters, I'm sure, but I haven't quite seen in most, is that the vanilla, like you said, stays throughout, very balanced, very even and smooth, doesn't kind of drop off, so that's our winner. But a couple more things I just wanted to talk about with the RiverWalk Brewing Company Storm Door, which was certainly still a good beer. But in terms of the flavor, the way that came on to me, you got the vanilla, and then there were some of those other spices that they were talking about. I know they mentioned cinnamon and stuff. Mm-hmm. There was an initial almost burst of spices, but that faded away very, very quickly. So it was an interesting flavor, and it was good. But it didn't sustain, so that's kind of a plus and a minus, I guess, for me on that one. But overall, I'd say none of what we've done today has suffered from some problems that you see with a lot of sweeter flavored porters, vanilla and otherwise, which is sometimes there's an overly sticky mouthfeel. We didn't really, this was all pretty mild there, I think. Yep. And then sometimes, Mark and I were chatting, but sometimes there's a longer aftertaste. We're speculating that it may seem longer if you don't like it as much.
Right.
But it was all fairly smooth, fairly, nothing that really just overpowered your palate for a very long time. So I think all in all, some great beer selections today. Yep. But the winner thus far is the Great North Aleworks at least from today, and we'll have to see. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that stacks up against that Kelson, because to date the Great North Aleworks and the Kelson, I think, are two highest rated, if my memory serves. So appreciate you guys watching again, and do you have anything else before we check out here?
Just make sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this.
Always good.
And just I hope you enjoyed the video.
Excellent. Thank you. Share it with everyone, and be safe, drink responsibly, and enjoy good beer. Thank you.